So you graduate seminary, right?
Yeah.
Are you go on the job hunt, right?
No, I didn't go on the job hunt. So I left to go to Texas knowing that I wanted to come back and join up with my former student pastor who was opening, I don't even know how to explain this. It sounds so bizarre. Opening a nonprofit Christian camp. So I went to seminary
To do that?
to come back and do that. It all made sense to me at the time.
It almost sounds like a waste of time.
Oh,
Seminary?
What?
wait a minute. Yeah. But and I had two men. This is how easy it is for me to miss God. I had two men sit me down for extended conversations, just like what had happened at Mississippi College, and tell me, you don't want to do this.
Go to seminary?
No. Go work for
Go
this
work for
camp.
this
Oh.
camp.
Man.
And I was like, nah, you don't know me.
All right, now tell us about the camp.
Yeah. So
You can give us the loose version, how you went in and how you came out.
Yeah. So the man that I work for, David Cook, I will love forever. He was there for me in so many difficult times in my life, and just a beautiful mentor of a man. And his wife, Lori Lynn, just did so many great things for me and for Cammie early on in our marriage. And I showed up at this camp, and I was like, all right, man, I'm going to help you. And I'm running tractors and weed eaters, and I mean, it was completely bizarre. I've got all this seminary stuff, and I'm maintaining a property for a guy, with a guy, not for a guy, with a guy. And I remember I had this really pivotal moment. I was weed eating around the lake, and that took a couple of hours actually. And I thought at one point, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous, And I felt God say to me internally, I was saying, I really want to be a teacher. That's what I want to do. I want to preach. I want to be a teacher. And I felt God say to me, I opened your mouth, meaning when you were younger, I opened your mouth, I'll close it, and I'll open it when I want again. It was just that definitive. I mean, I set the weed eater down on the ground. I was like, whoa. That felt very spiritual and kind of creepy. But my mistake was I set that in place as that is the definitive word of God over my life for the rest of my life, which is a big problem with my thinking.
It's a real six move.
Yeah. I'm like, well, he said it. That's kind of it. And that means he's never going to open my mouth. So I had a moment of realization working at the camp that it was time for me to go. But we lived on the property at the time. And obviously having a close relationship with my mentor and his wife, and we had developed really an adult friendship by this time. And I just had convinced myself that there's no way that I could leave, even though I knew that's what God was asking me to do.
But you did.
I did only because I went to the hospital, I think 4 total times. And in the fourth time, I was like, okay. I just said to God, whatever it is.
Like health stuff or like a tractor accident?
Sorry. Yeah. Health stuff.
Right.
Bizarre health things. Yeah.
Sorry, that was
Those bush hogs are pesky.
Yeah, I was like, what happened?
Man, that weed eater.
Seminary guy
Talking about
on
like
tractor.
workman's comp?
Yeah,
like
no.
Ben's actually loaded. We just didn't know.
That's
it.
right.
All those
Yeah.
settlements.
This is all a ruse.
That's why he works here.
I hope I'm doing a decent job here. But yeah, the medical stuff, just really weird, bizarre medical things. Started with dehydration one time that got out of hand, and then I had something called cytomegalovirus that it took them a couple of weeks to figure out that almost killed me. I went to the ICU. They told my parents and Cammie that I would be dead by the morning. Still, I was like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like, survived that. And I was like, man, that was a close call. All right, what do we got this week? Just like, it was completely crazy. I stayed on bed rest.
Second time's the charm.
Yeah, I stayed on bed rest forever. And David, the guy I'm working for, has to handle the ministry by himself. And I'm like, whew, man, that health stuff, yeesh, So
I defied death once.
yeah.
What do we got this week?
Yeah.
This is a piece of cake.
Yeah, it was crazy. Cammie had to brush my teeth. That's a big, long story in the hospital.
Oh, that's awesome.
She had to hang IVs when I got home. And
Whoa.
we had Owen was little, so she was trying to care for Owen by herself.
Owen, your son, not your dog.
Yes, Owen, my son. Yeah. And, anyway, so the last.
So in short, you left.
Yeah. The last time around I got, they thought I had sepsis. They thought my blood was
Jeez.
poison. Yeah.
Oh my
and
goodness.
that's when I was like, and the real story is it had just been such a long season of disobedience. I didn't understand that at the time, but just disobedience. And I laid in the bed essentially catatonic, and my family got really worried about me. I wasn't speaking, and they came in and started dosing me with antidepressants without me even knowing it. They were just handing me the plastic hospital cup, and I had to come to Jesus and realize I've got to go. Yep.
Yeah, that's some Job stuff.
Yeah, I convinced myself at that time though. All right, that means that God's calling me to church work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, how did that work out?
not too well.
Okay. Elaborate.
Yeah, so I had spent something like 8 years in the Christian camping world, which who understands that?
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Bill Blair.
Yeah, Bill Blair. Yeah, I actually worked there with Bill, which that's a podcast in and of itself. But I thought I was just gonna kind of jump into church work, because I've got the degree and it's dusty, but I can dust it off and I'll breeze in and go work at a church somewhere. And every church that I talked to was like, "Okay, what do you do? Like, what's your experience? Where have you worked before?" And I got this every time, like, "Oh, okay, so you're like a counselor at summer camp every year?" I'm like, "No, I'm helping run this camp. Don't you understand?" And like, I have a master's of divinity. You know how important that sounds? And it's from Baylor. And they're like, "Oh, Baylor," And so then I go back to the lunch, and he's like, "You'll never work at a church the rest of your life," And I just couldn't get a job. So I actually got pretty deep into the process interviewing with a local church, and it was a horrid experience. About that time, I reconnected with Philip.
Thurman.
Yes.
In the meantime, working at C-Spire, right?
Yeah. No. I connected with Philip.
Whoa, really?
Before C-Spire. So we had run across each other in church worlds at First Baptist Jackson, and I probably need to speed this up, but I was sitting in my in-laws' house and facing unemployment, and Cammie breezes by. I'm on a laptop. Cammie breezes by and says, "Hey, why don't you reach out to Philip Thurman? You haven't talked to him in a while, but he's in the church world, right?" I'm like, "Great idea." So I reach out to him, and man, he was so welcoming and accepting, and literally, I want to say this very plainly, the exact opposite of every other person in a church in the South that I have ever been in touch with. I'm like, wow.
It's pretty spot on.
Yeah, that's high praise.
Yeah, I'm like, this is...
You just don't know how good of a compliment that is.
This is refreshing. So I remember we were sitting in the what do we call it? It wasn't the sanctuary. Has it always
The
been
booth?
the audit? We were sitting in the
top?
booth,
Yeah.
Sitting in the booth, and he was like, "Look, man," and we had spent some time in ministry together. I had helped him out in some things. He was like, "Look, man, you want a place to preach? You can preach right down there. What do you got going 2 weeks from now?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he was like, "Dead serious." And so anyway, that's kind of how that started. But after that meeting, they didn't really have any Lifebridge, the church's name at the time. They just had no money to try to support me, to support a family. And I had to get a job in retail. And I got a job at C-Spire, which they then transferred me over to a warehouse, which is where God did probably the most important work in my life. Like way, 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 way beyond cancer.
Yeah.
C-Spire was.
You were pretty low at C-Spire, right?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to describe how depressed I was.
Yeah.
On medication, still very depressed. Because I had convinced myself that I was a failure and that God was done with me. And I couldn't get a job in a church. Nobody understood my work history. And I was in really poor relationship now with this mentor of mine because I'd left the camp, and that didn't go so well. And he would say the same thing if he were sitting here. So, yeah, I was very, very depressed. And my prior set of beliefs that had gotten me through a lot of difficult days was not helping. And that's kind of where Lifebridge came in.
Right. So you started interning, which is an incredibly loose term.
Especially during those days.
Yes.
Yeah. What it meant is that Philip Thurman and Greg Miller had really intense compassion over my story and found a way to give me some money to do something here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of people on staff at Vertical currently that started off as a quote unquote intern.
Yeah. It really meant that I was like just walking around on Sundays and putting chairs out for whatever service it was. And attending staff meetings when I could. They were moving staff meetings to the evening just for me to be there.
Yeah.
At that time, every couple of weeks. And that's where my journey here began. And the reason I fell so in love with this place is because it was so accepting and so opposite of the places that I grew up in.
Yeah. What was doing that work? Like, what were you getting to do? Were you just receiving that by just being on staff and you were understanding that, or there were relationships happening week to week that was making you realize these things? What was it?
Yes, Greg would text me every 2 weeks like clockwork. Because Philip at that time, and I believe he's probably still this guy, he's just always on the move, just meeting new people. And once you meet him once, he's like, cool, check. Met you once. All right, I'm going to get you the next guy. There's new people to meet. That's just that he's a mover and a shaker. And but Greg is one of those guys that just very methodical. He's what I needed. If Philip was triage, then Greg was the surgeon.
Yeah.
And Greg moves in every 2 weeks. He takes me to lunch. This guy, I had 47 minutes of a lunch break at C-Spire when everything's said and done. And Greg would show up at the restaurant early, order for me, and make sure that the food was there so that we could have a conversation. I could actually have lunch.
What a dude.
Man, yes, forever grateful for that guy. And he helped kind of untangle some things for me just through patient community and relationship.
Is that kind of like, jumping ahead a little bit, like one of your big passions is kind of reconciling men and their stories? Is a lot of that pulled from what Greg did for you in those years?
100%. Yeah, because you got to think about it. I had more information that I could possibly use about God and Jesus and the Bible and faith and church history and missions and all this stuff. And it was doing nothing for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's all great, but I'm in a warehouse right now scanning barcodes. What has happened to my life, And Greg moved in, very smart individual with all that knowledge as well, but he was able to interpret, okay, this is where you are in your life. These are the things that you've probably missed. I know the type of denominational world that you grew up in, and there's some significant gaps there. Let me help fill that in. So I'm very compassionate now to the man who knows a lot but knows nothing.
Do you think what role do you think, I'm sorry, let me say that better. How healing was it just that they allowed you to be a part of what they were doing? Because that's what I hear a lot in your story is I wanted, it sounded like you really wanted to do what God was calling you to do. You just weren't really given an opportunity or weren't really sure where that was. The fact that this church in Lifebridge and the leadership there was like, yeah, you can have a hand in what we're doing. I mean, how healing was that for you? Was that the
clutch?
Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, it's what pulled me back from the edge. I mean, I could take you to the spot on that concrete floor at that warehouse where I determined I have messed this up. I'll clean it up for podcast language. I've messed this up, my life up so poorly, so bad. I've messed up my life that even God has finished. And based on the way things are going financially and with our kids, and I'm all depressed and I'm not playing my role in my family may be done with me too, And so then I had a meeting with the local church and sat across from the table with a guy, and he told me straight to my face, you should not be in ministry. Based on me sitting with you, you shouldn't be in ministry. The best you could probably do is find a local church and just get involved. I mean, that was his commentary. And thank God I didn't get a job at that church. I would be a disaster at that particular church, and that was God's intervention. But that guy, I'm already depressed. I'm at a warehouse. I'm thinking I'm about to get, boom, he just hits me with that. And, the enemy and I spoke about this yesterday, the enemy will give you these things over your life at just the right time that they stick. Yeah. And that's exactly, the local church in Mississippi did that to me.
Yeah.
And the guys at Lifebridge, the men and women at Lifebridge, just helped me kind of peel that label back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do the intern thing. Greg's really working with you. At some point, you kind of get caught up, for lack of a better analogy, you kind of get caught up to the big leagues in terms of doing ministry at Lifebridge.
He grew a beard.
Yeah.
I just stayed long enough.
You just started looking more like Greg.
Yeah.
Insert picture of him here. But you get a seat on the bus that is a little more steady. What is that?
Yeah, well, actually, you're talking about stepping in the student pastor role?
I guess so.
Yeah. So I stepped into the student pastor role. The guy that was student pastor at the time was doing two jobs, which is a very church plant thing.
Yep.
He was making sure that worship was happening on the weekends and also leading the student ministry. And he loved both of them, which is that's kind of the worst place to be in, because it's two jobs and you love them both. What do you do? And Philip and Greg got me on the team by putting me in that role because he was very talented. The other guy was very talented at this other role. Mm-hmm. And so they gave me an opportunity to minister, and I had no idea what I was doing as a student pastor. But the guy before me had done such a great job that I was able to ride his success for probably 3.5 years of stuff that he had done and relationships that he had built. And it was just a beautiful time of me being able to just be in community and try to help people, especially at that age where I determined all the wrong things about who I was, to move in and say, no, don't do that. It's not your job to be Mr. Germantown or Miss Germantown. Let's figure out who you are, the student pastor. But I grew fatigued with that role after a while, largely because we went through a church merger and the student ministry went down to 8.5 people. If you count Cooper Wells as a half.
What's happening? Are you teaching more as a student pastor? Are you kind of in the rotation even more, or what's going on there?
Yeah, there are a couple different versions of that just to keep it tight. When I first came in, Philip was like, oh, thank goodness, there's another guy that can teach. And he was teaching every weekend, super fatigued by that. Yeah. So I was relieving those duties every once in a while, and it just kind of grew over time. And it is definitely a passion of mine. Instruction is definitely a passion of mine, in combination with instruction that corrects poor instruction, because there's a lot of that going on. So they moved me around to 1,000 different roles, we're kind of guilty of doing that here. Yeah. So.
Okay, so you do the student thing, 3.5 years in.
Or something like that. I don't know. Megan's usually here to correct all my
2014.
Time. Yeah.
2014, 2015 is where it's starting to play out. And then I think 2016 is when y'all make the decision to transition you.
Yeah. Man, you know better than I do.
Well, it affected me. So that's the only reason I remember.
Yeah, so I just became honest about at this point in my life, and this is what you referenced earlier. I started to do, thanks to Greg and thanks to Johnny Irvin, I started to actually try to figure out who I was, who I am. All these things I've been able to articulate today, 10 years ago, I mean, what do you need me to be? That's what I'm going to be, you know? So I started to figure out who I was, and I've gone through a lot of work thanks to guys like Roan Hunter and Phil Harden and Stephen Soller going on his journey, inspiring me to go on mine as well. He would say that in the reverse, but that's really how that worked. And so I was able to be honest with the staff at the time and say, man, I'm not the guy to lead the student ministry, and I love this church enough to be able to say this. Yeah. I'm tired, and I think it's because I feel like I'm not very good at this, and it's not going any better. And so they moved me into a lot of staff changes happened. I'd really prefer to not go into that, but a lot of staff changes happened at that time, and I was needed again. I had been, how do I say this? I had been sealed out from the stage by a particular staff member. I was told point blank in a meeting that I wasn't needed anymore on stage. And so I was like, okay, well, that's how you feel about it. Good luck, you know. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but right. But anyway, that particular staff member moved on. I was needed again, which felt great. I was needed again, and that led to a beautiful season. Yeah, right about that time where the Hanger stuff started kicking up. Yeah. So the Hanger stuff for me was just God was working so heavily in my life in particular ways that I think the church was very blind to and narrow-minded about. And if there's one thing Philip Thurman set up at this place, it's like, if we think God's going to work in it, we'll try it. Yeah. So I went for it. We went for the Hanger, and so I'm doing stuff, men's work, starting the Hanger, getting all that rolling. I'm teaching, but I'm not having to teach every week, you know, and I'm not actually the lead of the church, so all the problems aren't coming to me. It was just a beautiful, insulated time.
Beautiful place to be.
Yeah, in ministry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The best part.
Best part.
Not really. Just the part we're at now.
Okay. This is the best part because this is almost over?
Yeah. So somehow during this time, you get tapped as the batter up to lead pastor position.
Yes. Yep.
To wrap a bow around the whole thing.
You better do that.
I better do that?
Yeah, to wrap the. Oh, you need me to do it. Okay,
No,
I'll do it.
I want to know, like, what were your emotions and mindset and thoughts that happened when that happens?
Yes. Well, what most people outside of the staff don't know is that I tried to quit twice.
Yeah.
Because I saw myself as being a supporting role here, in that it appeared as though over the years, Philip's desire to be overseas and doing more stuff overseas was just growing and growing and growing. And I thought, man, this is perfect. The church will have an opportunity to be able to support that long term without having to sever the connection with the local church. And as a founding pastor, I mean, good grief, he helped start the place. So why would you sever your connection with that person? And I thought, man, okay, so we can kind of handle home base, and my giftings really seem to be appropriate for local church stuff, especially now after all this growth. He's wanting to be overseas more and more as that was playing out. And you have the executive role with Megan, who can handle all the stuff that really gets me confused, or did at the time especially. And so it seemed like it was going to be a beautiful setup. But it wasn't working, I think is the cleanest way to say that. It just wasn't working because a lot of different reasons. But as Philip began to struggle through what his role was going to be, and it began to emerge that he was seeing me as the next guy, I didn't want it because it appeared to me that it would be viewed as a takeover. And apart from that, who wants to be the guy after the guy?
Yeah.
And I still say that. The guy that comes after the guy usually doesn't last very long.
He's a stepping stone.
Yeah, it's like a 14-month stint, and then the person who's actually going to lead the church rolls in after that. But I now see it differently, and I'm actually excited about the chance to be public about this. I see it as all the stuff that we've talked about over the past hour, however long this has been, really positioned me to be a person that can care for this church well through the season that it's in.
Yeah.
I know a lot about the history. I've got a lot of the DNA that's just banked in, and it meant so much to me in the beginning. I don't want to lose that. But I do know that we're being called to newer, different places in the future. And to be able to sit in the room and to be, as we termed it, the second generation leader here, I think this church really, really needs.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long that season's going to be, but thankfully, because of all of my journey, I don't have to know that anymore. I'm here for as long as God has for me to be here. And I'm finally, I think, emerging from those transition months where Philip was here, but not here, and then eventually ended up leaving in kind of some painful ways, that I can now be who I feel like God's calling me to be, sitting in this chair, which is terrifying, but also exciting at the same time.
Well, good. I feel like I know you better.
You have that look in your face like, I've heard all this before. This is not new to me.
That's all right. I'm glad that people get to hear it for what it is, and get to know you better, because I think it's important. If they're trusting you to be like their church guy, I feel like they deserve it.
I think often people come into churches and they don't expect to have a real person on stage.
Yeah.
I think they think that there's like a handwritten letter when you wake up in the morning from,
here's what you're going to teach
from
today,
the Lord,
sir.
baby Jesus, or whatever. And it's like, and knowing the person who is presenting and the context that it's coming from and what is driving them, like even having multiple communicators. That's one thing that I love about Vertical is you have different people with different passions who are following the same God, and because of that, it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Anytime you know the context of somebody who is literally giving you, words from God every week, that's important.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And I think I want to address real quick. I know I've been very long-winded, but
That's all right.
I want to address quickly the fact that the transition happens, I become lead pastor, and it's like, whoa, this is unexpected. I tried to quit twice. That resignation wasn't accepted twice. And then boom, pandemic, whoa. It's just been, I think it's important for me to communicate to our church family. There have been more days than not where I've thought, is this just a different version of C-Spire for me? Like, am I at camp again? Should I not be here? Am I the guy to do this? There's been a lot of shaky days. I'm emerging from those shaky days, thankfully. and able to lead, I think, in a way that God wants me to lead. But I do desperately want people to understand. If you go back and listen to this podcast and listen to my teaching, you can see this emerge. I am more committed than I ever have been in my life to letting people know exactly where I am, so that they can understand as they're listening to me teach, okay, that feels like that got a little bit personal. Maybe that's a little more Ben than God on that part. Maybe he got it a little bit wrong there. I'm not out on the talk, but I can kind of put that in the Ben box. This other part feels like it is really God trying to speak through his leadership and teaching. There's so many people, and it's why I'm so hard on famous pastors who have the mask up and eventually end up falling. I have a real axe to grind against that sort of thing because I've been that man in my life. That's why I don't want to be it again and destroy a church in the process.
Yeah.
So it's important to me that people do know my story, and I think maybe I overshare. My wife tells me I overshare at certain times, but rather that, in fact, I had my notes. I'll finish here. I had my notes for yesterday. My commitment to being real will be forever, because I know this because I've had people pull up their phone and play back one of my sermons or one of these podcast episodes, and they've used it as a weapon against me. You said this. How can I trust you because of that? What did you mean by this? So be it. If people are going to use that as a weapon against me, those people probably need to find another place to go to church, because it's the people who are desperate to run into something real inside of the church. That's who we're here for.
Yeah. That's good.
Well said.
Thanks for vulnerability.
That's what I do.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, that's right. Brene would be proud.
Brene.
All right, can we move on?
Great.
I love the spotlight, but not this long.
Who's that?
Rick Ross.
Great. Any modern rapper would have been the appropriate response.
Kanye did that with Kid Cudi. He had a whole track where he went ba ba da da da, and literally everybody in 2017 is like, "That's fire. That's good."
It's like in Under Pressure, the one with Freddie Mercury in it, where David Bowie's just singing and he's just like, "Da-do-da, da-do-da," like in the background of the song.
Yeah, that's a modern. That's the modern
is he
version
doing?
of
He's
that.
just making weird noises.
He's just vibing, dude.
Hey, I don't like David Bowie.
Really?
I don't mind his sound, but him as a singer, it's just, especially if you are trying to sing alongside Freddie Mercury and you're not,
Yeah.
at least like
Well,
B plus tier.
I feel like a lot of singers in, the 70s and 80s got away with having terrible voices.
Yeah.
Well, they were just discovering music.
But also, sure, it didn't exist before.
What real music is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like David Bowie, but it's fine.
Well, but
Yeah.
it's like, I don't think his music's bad. His singing.
the
like,
comparison between, I get it.
Yeah.
I would have loved,
understand.
like with David Bowie's production level, with like, insert better singer here.
You already did, Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, you should read the story about recording that record. It was not a good,
Not a good experience.
I did my senior research paper on David Bowie. It had to be on a historical British figure.
Oh man.
So
You should have gone with Mick Jagger. Like, he's still, kicking, but he's also historical.
You ever
Yeah.
seen that music video with Mick Jagger and David Bowie?
No.
We'll watch it afterwards.
Oh, okay.
All right. Anyway,
So we have people with us, and
ask
we're
us
just
anything.
talking.
yeah, we've officially donated this segment to
David Bowie.
the impoverished Avery Snyder.
Foundation?
Needed a segment. We gave her one. So here you
It's
go,
a pity
Avery.
segment.
Do
It's
your
fine.
thing. Yeah.
Ask us
Anything.
Did these come off the Instagram post? I saw you
These
posted on
did,
Instagram.
yes.
I like that.
Yeah, that was a successful idea there.
It really
Avery.
was. Everyone really came through with some questions. Don't be afraid.
Can we write in questions?
Yes, you can write in questions.
Oh.
I don't like that.
Or your
We're gonna-
spouses.
We're going to stack it.
go through our spouses.
But,
Anyway.
I get to select them, so
Oh, that's true.
Okay. All right.
I'm the filter there.
Fair warning.
But anyways, again, if you want to send questions, please do. Nothing is off limits. Send us your spicy questions.
Oh.
It just may be a moment before we answer them while we prepare.
While we form
While
our
we
opinions on
prepare.
them like we have David Bowie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I've had that decided a while.
obviously. Okay, first question. What is a recipe I should try?
To make or like what's a dish? What?
I did. Yeah, sure. As broad
Like
as you,
something that we eat in our homes often?
yeah, or something that you've had. I don't know.
Well, herein lies the problem. I am not the cook at our house. When I cook at our house, it is either breakfast or a pre-made Costco meal that I can just kind of toss and heat up with some rice, or I make a mean bowl of cereal.
Okay, let me ask you this: what is your best breakfast sandwich or burrito, scramble?
I make
something like
I make
that?
a good omelet. I like omelets.
What's special about it? Though? Is there like a secret ingredient?
I like it's. I mean, it's just kind of an essentially like a Denver omelet. I don't know. Can I give something that my wife makes that I
Yeah.
enjoy? That if they want to like
It just says what's a recipe I should try.
a
Whoever asked.
recipe I should try. Okay, great. My wife Caitlin, who's been on the podcast, makes a great tiki masala. It's fantastic. Now you can do what we often do and go get the Costco pre-made.
It is good.
And it's great. That being said, Caitlin's is much better. So if you have a spare 2 hours to assemble all the ingredients and
Have
get
I
them,
had it? I feel like we've only had Costco together. I
no,
don't think
she
I've-
made it when we lived with y'all for. 2
Oh
weeks.
yeah,
And
yeah. I helped her make it. That's right.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, it was very
now, if you want that recipe, you will have to
Talk to
sequester it from my wife. I don't have it.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Cool. Chase, you got one?
Well, I've already said my stir fry before, but
Okay.
I think
He makes a good stir fry. And the thing with his stir fry is he uses teriyaki sauce. And I don't love teriyaki sauce, but it's pretty good.
I do
I
it
love
more.
teriyaki
It's more
sauce.
bitter.
It's not
than-
quite as sweet, which is
Yeah.
why I like it.
Yeah. I do a way more ginger than it calls for because I freaking love ginger.
Love ginger.
Irish.
Irish.
You know what? Here's something you should try. I don't think a lot of people probably tried this, given that we're Southern. Everybody's had like Mississippi roast or like kind of stew oriented style roast where it's just savory and salty and that's it. Assuming I use savory right correctly there. It does
you
not
did.
mean what you think it does.
Oh, well, then maybe I'm
I
wrong.
was misconstrued for a long time.
I thought
and
you
then-
used it correctly.
And then my wife corrected me.
Next podcast.
Anyway, I tried something the other day with a roast. I've fallen back in love with Cavender's seasoning, Greek seasoning, quote unquote. Yeah, air quotes. Thank you.
YouTube?
So first off, you should give an Instant Pot roast a try.
Wait, you have an Instant Pot?
How long
I
does
do-
it take?
I do have an Instant Pot and an air fryer. It takes an hour and a half.
Wow.
Incredibly fast, incredibly tender. You could even sear it beforehand if you want to, and it feels like a standard Dutch oven roast.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What I did though, what?
Oh, I was just gonna say I've had your roast and it kind of resurrected the idea of roast for me. We were
love
one of those
roast.
families that had roast like a lot of Sundays.
Yes.
And so for years of my life, I was like, yeah, I don't want your roast.
Roast is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I love roast.
I tried something different this time where I put just a ton of Cavender's and then a lot of apple cider vinegar, which if you've never had it or if you've never cooked with apple cider vinegar before, it can transform your dish if you kind of like the vinegar vibe.
Yeah.
I
fact.
do it in my green beans.
Avery's parents punished her by making her swallow apple cider.
Was it apple
No,
cider vinegar?
no, it's just regular vinegar.
white vinegar.
coming up with things now? You wish.
I wish
But then
it
you
was
also have to make sure you put enough butter in there to make the savory, salty side cut through, where it's kind of a little rich. Don't do a full stick where I accidentally did that with Austin's roast because that was a rich roast.
Now it was tasty.
It had the right flavors.
It
was
did
just a
not
little-
love me back.
Yeah, yeah. You were still living with us then too.
It
Guess
was
I
a-
don't want to know what that means.
It was a great roast.
Anyway, try some Cavender's apple cider vinegar, a little bit of salt. Well, actually, a lot of bit of salt. Throw like an au jus packet in there, something like that. Yeah, you can do the mean
Gosh, I
salt
love au
sprinkle.
jus.
Good. I'm getting hungry. What most people don't know is that we eat lunch directly after this
we-
podcast. So usually we're all primed and ready because all we've
Last
done
week-
is talk about food.
Last week when we were talking about restaurants and hole in the wall places, I was
Yeah.
like, man.
What is a recipe we should try, Avery?
Yeah. So
Are you the cook or is Dalton?
Dalton.
Dalton,
I see Dalton as being a good cook.
Yeah, Dalton is an he cooks. He's a great cook. But I do cook every now and then, and I have some good recipes.
Yeah.
But one of my favorites is chicken and dumplings.
Oh, I love good chicken.
You make 'em?
And yes, I make the dumplings.
You need to bring them.
Okay, I will. I really
Freaking
will.
love
Love
finding
chicken.
out about this.
Yeah, I made some for
Do
Reagan
you do it
and
with
Micah.
cornbread?
No, I
Oh, you did it. Yeah, when they
Yeah.
had Josie.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
and so they can vouch for the recipe. Dalton loves it too. But yeah, so you make the own dumplings.
I did text Micah on the side. I'll tell you this now and asked how they actually were, and he said they were delicious.
Okay, good, good, cool. You can make your own dumplings, or you can. It says you can just get biscuit dough and just cut them up,
Like out of the can that you
yeah,
pop.
Yeah, so I don't know how that is, but you can
It's
find.
not.
You can find the recipe. It's on. It's tasty.
Homemade dumplings are better
Recipe.
than the biscuit
Yeah.
stuff.
That's
And-
intriguing.
It is so good, and you can just make a bunch of it at once.
That's a great one, and I'm down. Whenever you bring chicken and dumplings, I
Okay.
will put aside my meal prep and eat it. Now, I do have a question going off of that.
Okay.
Though. Are there any recipes that you, and I use the term recipe very loosely.
Okay.
Here. Are there any recipes that you used either during high school or college that were like cheap, but you're like, this slaps, and I like you continue to eat it?
Okay, so my dad quit his longtime job my senior year of high school, which caused a slew of social problems for me in general. Because, prom, homecoming, et
Why
cetera.
would you inconvenience me in this way?
No. Last year of high school. Anyway, it's all good now. But for about 5 months of my senior year, I would say probably twice a week, if not more, I had ramen. And one of the ultimate specialties that you can do, I think a lot of people have probably tried it, but if you haven't, you deserve to do it, is to cut up a hot dog and cook it with your ramen.
I've never tried that.
Cook it with your beef ramen. I'm
Beef
telling
ramen.
you.
Yeah.
It gives some sustenance.
Interesting.
It's good in a pinch. Really carried me through a lot.
I definitely would have done that in
Yeah.
college for sure.
Delicious.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind for me, and actually it's not even mine. I stole this from my wife as well. Thank you for marrying me. Caitlin, I remember we went to college in different towns, and I remember calling her, and we would do that thing that, you do when you live in different towns. Oh, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm making, all those things. And she would always say, I'm making pasta. And I'm like, dang, this girl's making a lot of pasta. So we get married, and I had forgotten that. And one night, she was like, I don't want to do anything hard. I'm just going to do these garlic noodles that I make all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. What? Holy crap.
They're so good.
Probably a third of the nights of our marriage we have spent together over these garlic noodles because they take 5 minutes.
Yep.
And they're so freaky. It's just garlic and cheese.
I have an exact same thing that Rachel and I crutched on during the middle of quarantine.
Yeah.
Just make some rice, throw some butter, throw some Tony's on it, and do some Instant Pot chicken. Call it.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. There's a beauty to simple meals like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's so fast.
Give me one, Avery. What comes to mind? You can't say Mr. Chin's.
No. I don't know. In college, I always had a meal plan, so I didn't really cook in college. But when I did, I also lived in a dorm room, so I didn't have my own kitchen.
Y'all didn't have communal kitchens in the.
You did, but they were disgusting.
Really?
They were really nasty.
That's a bummer.
But Dalton and I, when we started dating, he lived in an apartment that had a kitchen, so I would go over there, and we made a lot of chicken Alfredo, and we found a really good chicken Alfredo recipe. It takes a lot longer to make than just a normal one where you make the sauce in a pan and then pour it over the noodles. You actually cook the noodles in the sauce,
Clutch.
and it's so good, but it does take longer. But
It changes it up.
and
It's not so liquidy. It's more saturated.
Yes. The type of Parmesan cheese you use is very important too.
I like it.
Don't go cheap there.
Nah, you
Don't
can't
really
skimp on
improve.
Parmesan.
Yep. Okay.
Anyway,
Great question. We could talk about food all day.
sure could.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
okay.
next?
Who is the most fashionable staff member?
The most. Okay, wait. Did somebody send this in, or are you looking for compliments? You just threw this in there. Oh, okay.
Someone sent this in.
All right. That's tough.
It's not me.
Here's the problem. The
I
reason
like your
that,
sweatshirts though, especially the one you have on right now.
Yeah, I like
Well,
that.
guess who the sweatshirt
Reshma.
is from?
Has to be Reshma.
Reshma.
Here's the problem.
I was gonna say Reshma.
I'm not saying Reshma. Because there are Reshma is in this. There are probably 4 or 5 people who none of them except for Ben would admit that they fancied themselves the most fashionable person in the office. The problem is they all have such different styles.
Yeah,
so they're all in different
it's gonna be very
leagues.
subjective.
For sure.
Yes.
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm having a hard time. Like, am I rating this who I think just culturally probably dresses the best, or who I appreciate their fashion the most?
I don't know. There's not really any parameters here.
So
Well,
you're going
I need
Reshma.
the
Give me a
rules.
reasoning for Reshma while I think.
I'll say Reshma has a wide variety of clothes. She I don't know how to explain it.
Okay.
Oh, I was just
Like she's not like me where I would just kind of wear the same thing every day. Like I'm very consistent.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
okay.
Like I'm over here wearing the same thing. I don't know. I feel like I see her in something different every day. And
You do.
yes.
every day.
Well-
Self-admitted.
Reshma has a rule. She can't wear something twice.
Yeah. I don't know.
If she's photographed.
Also
that
just
is.
appreciate
some kind
her
of like
style.
myth.
I don't know.
I have to say there's kind of a tie going on in my mind, and so I'm doing a mental tiebreaker. But probably Amada. I love the way that Amada dresses, because here's the thing. Amada is like, I can see her wearing something and I'm like, that's freaking Amada, you know?
Yeah.
And she has the hair, she dyes her hair.
That is the best part about
Yeah, that's
fashion.
She's holding
That's
that down.
awesome.
Yeah, Amada has like a type of t-shirt or sweatshirt. I'm like, Amada would wear that, and she sticks to that, and I dig that. Please God, nobody say Ben.
I'm not gonna. I think if I'm going based on like, I appreciate it because that's how I would enjoy dressing, then I would probably say you, Austin, because we dress fairly similarly in that we have like 6 things that we like, and that's the rotation.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
But
that's Groot too.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I think the classiest version of how we dress is probably Groot.
Probably, yeah. I would agree with that.
The only
that
thing
was my second one.
The only thing I would
Chris.
tweak about Groot is I appreciate that he got rid of the trucker hat look and he switched to more of the dad hat vibe.
I wish he could get Ben on that train.
That's a whole sidebar. And 2,
God, I hope Ben listens to this.
2, I wish he wasn't such
Please.
a minimalist, because I love the static bottom half where it's tennis shoes and
Band
boots.
name called it.
static bottom half.
Yeah.
But I would need more t-shirts in the rotation, you know?
I will say, Austin, I can appreciate your shoe collection.
Thank you.
I don't know much about shoes, or at least like
Are those the ones you wore
area
yesterday,
of
your shoes?
But
Yeah, I don't like those.
I think it's cool.
I like your other ones better.
You don't like these? Here's the thing. These these
those
are
are okay.
so freaking comfortable.
Oh yeah, I get
They
it.
make me want to not wear anything else.
Yeah.
I thought, but you said that about your last pair that you were rotating through, the salmon ones.
I'm telling you, these are.
What size do you wear?
It depends. But
What are those right now?
These are
Don't say it out loud. You can whisper it.
8.5.
Okay, I can't try it on.
That's what size shoe I wear, but in women.
well.
So
Oh, sorry.
Well, that was fun.
Good question.
that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
getting
you
a
know who
little-
we forgot? Michael McQuillan.
I almost said Michael.
He was like, yeah.
Nobody owns it more. He's just, I'm
Michael
going to
is
dress
Michael.
exactly how I want to
feel
wear
like
and
that's
not care what you
there
think.
could not be a better summation for Vertical Church than that. It's just like, you know what? It is what it is.
But
and-
at the same time, I do think if I told Michael, I don't really think that shirt's you, he would stop wearing it.
I don't know. Michael wears what he's gonna wear. I appreciate that about him.
Well, we now have a new game to play.
Yeah. Well, let's test it
We'll
out.
see how that goes.
He's not going to listen to this. It's gonna be
We'll
fine.
keep you updated.
Okay.
God bless Michael.
I know.
love
He's
him.
the best.
I love him.
Okay. So getting a little spicier here.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
What would you change about the way you were raised? Now we don't have to attack our parents
So
here.
yeah, I was just fixing to say. So this can be situationally. This can be.
Yeah. Here, I can start this off to give us.
Oh, I do have an answer.
Was this ass? Never mind. Actually, I don't want to know that. Go ahead.
This was a question sent in. But I would say my family, we went to Disney World a lot. And I've spoken about our Disney trips on the podcast before. And obviously I'm thankful that for those trips, and a lot of them were fun, and I have a lot of fun childhood memories from there. But because we only went to Disney World, I've never really been anywhere else in the world, or at least until I got to college. I had never even seen the mountains until I was like 19. But I guess because of that, like I do have a greater appreciation for it because now I just love being in the mountains. But I mean, when I was in high school, I think the only national park I knew of was the Grand Canyon. So I just would have loved to see a little more of the world.
Avery, my answer is like almost exactly yours, except we went to Gulf Shores probably 8 years in a row of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Yeah, which is probably why I hate the beach now.
Also, same. We went to the beach a lot.
Yeah. I get it because it can, especially if you go with another family like we did, it can turn into a cheaper trip.
For sure.
It just becomes food mostly. But I would have loved I still haven't really like seen crazy mountains. Like I've been in like the California ones, but they're nothing crazy.
And like I get it as a kid. I mean, it's a lot easier just having your kids on the beach instead of, hiking in the mountains where there's bears and stuff.
We sure took those family pictures in our white shirts every year, though.
And the khaki pants or jeans.
Cargo khaki pants. I did wear a plaid one year, though, when that came into vogue.
Yeah. How about you, Austin?
Man, there are probably a lot of things that I probably should have thought about this more, but the initial thing that first comes to mind is so I think I talked about this on the podcast a little bit before, but my dad had always worked away, and it was kind of just his job. Whenever they had me really, really early, and I'm the oldest of 4, and so it was kind of like from what I understand, it was kind of like an essential thing. Like, hey, I have to go work somewhere. So and so when I was young, my dad drove a truck, and then he got on with the company that he works for now, and he's worked his way up, and he has a fantastic job now. But his job always included travel. And what was weird about that is my dad's dad, my grandfather, traveled for work too, and I think there was a little bit of resentment there from my dad. And so I always heard that from him in kind of like a passive aggressive way a little bit, and looking back, I think I took it as a like I don't want to be ungrateful that my dad's working, because he's providing, and that's important. That's very important. And so when I was young, I would just be like, well, I mean, that's just his job. That's just what he does. But looking back, I kind of wish that I understood a little bit more about what was going on there, because I think that I was a little upset that he wasn't at every baseball game. I was a little upset that he was missing some things here or there, and I didn't know my dad very well until I was older, and I'm appreciating that now, and I like that I get to know him now, and I think we have a relationship now where we know way more about one another than we ever did then. But looking back, I don't think I understood that, and so I was probably angry at him and didn't really know that. So if I were to change something, I wish that somebody had explained that to me a little earlier on. Like, this is part of your life. It doesn't mean that your dad's like mad at you. That's why he's missing the game, because when you're 7, you're like, well, why would he go to work? And and I didn't understand it.
It's weird. I don't know if weird is the right word, but it's interesting as you get older to realize that your parents are also humans.
Well, and they're people, and they're involved in relationships. He would come home and he had been on the road for 2 weeks, and so he'd be tired, and I'd be like, well, why aren't we hanging out? Or you don't think about, you see your parents argue like everybody's parents do, but when your dad is gone for multiple weeks at a time, it seems like a much more finite thing, because he's gone right after that, and you're like, well, what's happening here now? Like, our mom, like, what is this? So I wish that I had somebody explain that a little better to me. I think that my dad and I would have been much closer much sooner.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is that questions?
Yep, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
great.
I thought you were about to say something.
Me?
Yeah, I thought you were like,
I had a look on your face. I was like, oh no. It's about to roast my childhood right here.
No, I won't do that.
Okay.
We all had nice childhoods that were each our own. I don't know if they're nice or not.
Recommends.
We all had childhoods, period.
You were a child once, right? Recommends. Welcome to Sports Center. I'm your anchor, Chase Hammock. I'm here with my co-anchors, Austin Lightspeed and Avery Strongoak.
Strong Oak. Dude, I had
Sports names.
So I was sitting in group one night, and we were there with some friends. Actually, they were leading the group, and we were talking about what trees people would be. And it was it was a
Fun group.
weird church. No, we're there, and the guy's wife who was leading the group, she's like, "Well, sweetheart, what tree would I be?" And he was like, when I think of you, I think of like a real big, mighty oak, And the look on her face, I was like, that dude did not answer that correctly.
I see a nice, whimsical crepe myrtle.
Yeah. Big, mighty oak. I was like, bro. Anyway,
All right. Anyway.
That should be a compliment.
I don't recommend you talk to your bride that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Recommends. Want, need, wear, read.
Yes.
Gonna go at light speed.
Thank you, Janice.
Strong oak.
Yes. Is that me?
You have one.
Strong oak.
Strong.
Okay, so
Whenever Ben comes back next
should
week
just
or
have
whenever,
nicknames.
just start calling.
no. Can we have like call names?
That would be fun.
He's on your tail, Strong Oak.
I don't like that.
You can't admit you don't like it, then it stinks.
I love it. I love it.
I love it. Strong oak. That's me. All right, one.
It's a lose-lose for me, I guess. So Dalton has, or I
Your
should say,
husband?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
His family, or maybe it's him, I don't know, has introduced me to these noodles, and oh my gosh, they're so good. It is
Rice
all,
noodles.
I haven't. No, it's all pretty much all. I've had them at least like once every other day for the past like 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Okay, wait, what kind of noodles are they?
Okay, so they are Asian noodles, and they look like they're in a ramen packet. But I'm just gonna try to read this name. I'm gonna butcher it.
Does it start with an M?
Is it going to be offensive?
No, it's Indomie mee goreng instant stir fry noodles.
Oh.
I do like
And-
instant stir fry.
Where'd
So-
you get them?
You can get them from Kroger. They're hard to find from Kroger, though.
They're in the Asian section.
They are. But so when
That's what it's called.
when you open them up, there's like this packet, and there's like
Mississippi.
3 separate sauces, and then there's another packet with like this powder, and then
Are the
like dried fried onion.
are the sauces any good?
Incredible. They're necessary. So
Oh.
what you would do is like cut the packages open and then stir it all together. And then you cook your noodles and then drain them. Like this isn't like a soup noodle. You would use a colander and then you stir it into it. And they are so good. And then you can put chicken with it, or you can just eat them as they are. But I'm serious, they're so good.
Sounds good. I'm gonna have to give that a shot.
I used to do peanut pad thai instant. It was
Yeah.
one of my favorite things
I love pad
way
thai.
back when.
It's like a really good combination of spicy and sweet. Like they're
I thought
relatively
you were about to
spicy.
say I used to do peanut butter and jelly, and I was like, great,
So that's what you want.
good. I like it. Need.
Is that me?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. What you need. I got this by chance. I got this in a bittersweet moment because we had some friends moving away and they no longer wanted this object. And as we were telling them bye, he was like, hey, do you want this? And I was like, absolutely, I do. You need.
It was his daughter.
Yes. And now we call her Liv. No one's ever. Never
4
mind.
people are gonna think that's funny.
Never mind. What it was actually was a mini fridge. If you are a person,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's soda, if you're that kind of person, if you're LaCroix, Capri Suns, if you're me on a nice Saturday.
I love Capri Suns.
I know they're so
What
good.
about those little barrel things that you poke the hole in the top?
No, they were too
Sweet.
They're
fake.
They're syrupy.
Yeah.
They are.
Okay, wait, wait, wait.
Sorry.
So your mini fridge, where do you keep it though? That would be
Mine's in my
Yeah.
garage. You know where
What
it
if
is.
what if you are like
it
Dalton
is.
and I and you don't have a garage?
It's called SOL. But when you get a house, there's like two things you should be getting when you get a house. One we've gotten, one we haven't yet. So whenever I get it, I'll recommend it. But it's a mini fridge
And insurance.
and a deep freeze. We were walking through Costco yesterday, and there's so many good-looking freezer items.
Yeah.
But your freezer's the
freezer's
smallest
tiny.
part of your
Yeah.
fridge.
I think this is adulthood.
Yeah,
It is.
These are the things we get
Realizing
excited
your
about
freezer's
now.
too small.
These are the
Yeah.
things you don't tell you. They don't tell you about. But
Man,
here we are.
You know what? The only reason I could see myself having a mini fridge in my garage is there's this fantastic episode of what is it? Don Draper,
Mad Men.
Mad Men, when he's like out in the garage and he's like working on something and he keeps going back to the fridge and he like has the old timey beer opener and he has like
He's just
Yeah.
being an alcoholic
It's-
on screen.
Oh,
It's
I was
nice.
just like, I'm not
That's
saying
cool.
that's the kind of man I want to be, but
But it
that dude
makes you
looks like
feel
a
like a
freaking man right now. Like,
Yeah, another thing I want is a
glass Cokes.
specific ice machine.
Oh
Because
yeah.
that's some of the best ice
My
of the
parents
world.
have an ice machine, of course.
That's when he
is it like
made
the Sonic
Yes.
ice?
No.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
The Sonic ice is nice. I also like those really small square ones, you know?
Yeah,
Where it's perfect
yeah.
square and then they're like a 1/4 inch thick.
Oh yeah.
I like those a lot too.
nice.
The life of luxury.
Gosh, we're so boring.
Yeah. Sorry guys.
Anyway,
Anyway, where?
Oh, that's me.
yeah, Avery.
Yeah.
Great sweatshirt.
Thanks.
Why am I even here?
Well, maybe you'll read us a story later.
Lovely. Go ahead.
Perfect. So one of my favorite stores ever is REI.
Love REI.
I could spend hours in there. Sometimes
What's it stand for?
recreational
Real.
like equipment
I
incorporated
couldn't even think
That
of
was
an
the
E.
saddest part about moving away from Memphis.
was
is
being away from REI.
they literally built it the month after we
Is
came
that the only
here.
reason you like Birmingham is because there's an REI there?
no,
That's not enough of a reason.
I like Birmingham.
No.
We can discuss that later.
Okay.
Nice thing about REI is their their REI version or their REI
That's
stuff
what I'm
brand is
recommending.
good.
is good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what you're recommending? Oh, okay.
Just in general. Sorry.
Take a trip to an
No.
REI.
So specifically, I have a few REI co-op items.
I've recommended BCG shorts before, and that's Academy brand, so I guess I can't hate on her too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, they make some really nice things. I mean, they have their own versions of like their rain jackets and down jackets, but specifically their active
What's
wear.
a down jacket?
A down jacket?
like
Those are like the
warm.
puffer jackets.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking.
I have one.
Yeah, super warm. But I have some REI co-op shorts, and oh my gosh, they are so comfortable, and they're like kind of high waist a little bit. Like they look nice. Like I could go run a mile, or I don't know, like run more than
Quarter
1
mile.
or I could,
Put on
I
a
could walk
sweatband
to,
and
you
I could
know,
walk-
the
power
mailbox.
walk to the mailbox.
I don't know. They're super comfortable. I also have some sweatpants from them. They're really comfy. Dalton has some hiking pants, and they're
they ship?
really nice. Oh yeah, they do. And
This
they
is
also
America.
they usually have, if you're an REI like co-op member,
Mm.
it's like $20 to join.
Forever? $20 and you're good?
I
for-
believe it's a year, but you get
So we'll just need to order through you then.
sure, but you get a certain percentage of your purchase back.
Yeah,
And
that's a scam.
and then you get like all these crazy deals on co-op items. So like when Black Friday comes around, you can get like 75% off all the co-op items or other, not necessarily co-op items, but those usually have the better sales. But their co-op items are just so nice, and they're really like on top of the trends too. Like, so I don't know.
Very
I love
cool.
REI.
I don't want to be trendy though.
I could talk about REI
Does
forever.
Reshma shop at REI?
I don't know. I guess that matters because she's fashionable.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm hearing right now. You know who doesn't is Grote. Grote would not
That's
shop
true.
at
That's
REI.
true. He's Brother Moto or something
Yeah,
like
no
that.
trucker hats there. So I have a read.
Hey, sure.
So one of the things that we do, or that I do with interns, and like our Amplify intern right
Every
now,
intern ever?
that I try to, if I have interns. Our intern right now, his name is Jacob. Is I try and I try and meet with him weekly, and we do some accountability stuff, and then we're also typically reading a book together. And usually I've already read the book, But the one we are currently going through right now, I have not, and I'm loving it. And I'm enjoying going through it with him. It's a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And it was
You know
actually...
who loves that grope? That grope. Dang it. I gave it
I was
away.
just going to say, it was directed to me by
You
Greg.
know who loves that grope?
You know who loves that grope?
Book.
Yeah, essentially, essentially, essentialism is talking about paring
The
down
essentials.
Yes, pare down your life to the essentials, but it's not. I was worried it was going to take a very minimalistic view of things, and in reality, it's almost combating minimalism a little bit, because that's kind of just paring down to.
So it's something like you don't want to be minimalist for minimalist's sake. You
Right.
want the essentials in your life.
Essentialism is
This is
basically
why.
it's teaching you a process by which you can choose the most important things. And really what he talks about most is giving yourself the ability to make choices instead of allowing other people to make choices for you. And so whether that's marketing, whether that's people in your life asking you to do things at your job that you're either not capable or don't have time for, all of those things. And it's been good for me. It's been kind of like a punch in the teeth, but it's good. It's very
Stop
good.
letting people tell you what to do.
Basically. Yeah. I feel
Interesting.
like I do that too much.
Hey,
so.
flip your phone over. That was easy.
Well, bye.